The upper house is now complete after the final members are sworn in today.
We have had sufficient talk on strategies. We must now transform these strategies into action to reduce our present levels of crime.
The Minister of National Security talking tough on fighting crime, and a convicted sex offender back in court today. We'll tell you what he's requesting of the court now. The Bahamas Tonight starts now.
Covering the islands of the Bahamas, ZNS Network presents The Bahamas Tonight.
This portion of the news is brought to you by McDonald's. McDonald's, I'm loving it.
The Prime Minister says several key appointments are up for review. Good evening and welcome to the Bahamas Tonight, the National Report. I'm Keishla Adderley. Thanks for joining us. Topping the news tonight, it's a story which made headlines last year, and it seems as though the new Progressive Liberal Party administration may re-examine the case involving Deputy Law Commissioner Cheryl Grant-Bethel. The former Deputy Director of Public Prosecutions challenged a decision not to promote her to Director in court. The case, however, did not result in the appointment to Director. Senior Supreme Court Justice John Isaacs, however, ruled last March that the Commission's decision was irrational and found that Grant-Bethel had suffered damage to her reputation and deserved vindication. In an interview with ZNS News this afternoon, Prime Minister Perry Christie said Mrs. Grant-Bethel's case will be reviewed, or may be reviewed.
I'm not as familiar as I could be with the issues affecting her. I gave an undertaking that I will make myself familiar with those issues. We do have a Director of Public Prosecutions under contract that, you know, when you come to government, notwithstanding the best views articulated, one has to exercise good judgment when it comes to people who are in post. And so Mrs. Bethel is fully aware of my bona fides in this matter. That is, I will, in good faith, examine the position and independent of the Attorney General, I will arrive at my position as what is the right thing to do in all of the circumstances.
Now, the Prime Minister's comments came just after 10 Progressive Liberal Party senators were sworn into office in the ballroom at Government House. As Altavis Munnings tells us, Mr. Christie pledged to develop a cadre of exceptional leaders to oversee the country's affairs.
Progressive Liberal Party election candidates Frank Smith, Gregory Burrows, Jerome Gomez, Julian Russell, Gary Sawyer, Alex Storr, Tanisha Tynes, as well as former Senate President Sharon Wilson, businessman Joseph Curry, and attorney Cheryl Bazard, all received their letters of appointment from Governor General His Excellency Sir Arthur Foulkes Monday afternoon during the 15-minute Senate swearing-in ceremony. They received well wishes from family, friends, and supporters. Delivering the keynote address at Monday's swearing-in ceremony here at Government House was Prime Minister Perry Christie. He congratulated the new group of senators and is very pleased that a talented and patriotic group of individuals have answered the call to public service.
It is so refreshing to see so many new persons stepping forward to play their part in the governance of our country. This replenishment of the blood supply to the body politic is what helps to maintain the robust health of our democracy.
The Prime Minister says he's struck by the group's uniqueness representing our archipelago as well as their age difference.
Looking at them as a group and as individuals, it gives me a great deal of reassurance to know that some of our best people are continuing to answer the call for higher service. I only wish that I could have had more seats in the Senate at my disposal, because there were so many others who were deserving of inclusion as well.
The newest senator with the most experience is former Senate President Sharon Wilson, who couldn't say if she would serve a second term as Senate President, but did offer this advice to her colleagues.
We must at all times keep in the foremost of our consciousness the fact that we are there for the advancement of this country.
The Prime Minister anticipates the opening of Parliament this week, Wednesday, and he's hoping that the new senators, as well as the members of Parliament elect, are in a state of readiness to serve the country. Altavis Munnings, ZNS News.
Well, Prime Minister Christie says his administration will not be confined by the conventional as it fights an extraordinary criminal element. Clint Watson tells us tonight that at the opening of the Regional Police Commissioners Conference, Mr. Christie detailed the approach his government will take in getting crime under control.
We have had sufficient talk on strategies. We must now transform these strategies into action to reduce our present levels of crime.
National Security Minister Dr. Bernard Nottage is not alone in his view. In fact, governments throughout the Caribbean realize that while the region shares history and culture, so is its challenges with crime, an opposing force that is threatening the very survival and financial viability of its people and economies. In fact, one of the main priorities of the new administration is to unleash an assault on crime never seen before. The government hopes to do it through Project Safe Bahamas.
This government believes that the implementation of these strategies will significantly reduce the present levels of crime being experienced in our country.
For Prime Minister Perry Christie, the ACCP is his first speaking engagement at a conference since general elections. And given the challenges his administration is facing, in his view, it's a good place, time, and group to start with. In fact, he says the success of the region in addressing crime depends on this esteemed body of police commissioners adopting effective mechanisms and best practices. But this body can't do it alone. Mr. Christie says a holistic approach engaging all stakeholders must be done. He says his administration has decided that they are going to take the fight to the streets.
When you are fighting on law and order matters and dealing with the behavior of people who kill people, the fine distinction between the defense force and the police force do not exist for me. So when I'm speaking about a fight, an overcoming a struggle, my mandate to the Minister of National Security is to find the formula to enable all of the forces that exist in our country to get involved in that fight.
The Prime Minister believes a big part of their success will be through the implementation of Urban Renewal 2.0, which seeks to empower youth.
We feel strongly that the implementation of this program will ultimately lead to a reduction of crime in our communities. We will remain firm and resolute in pursuing those among us who continue to commit crimes and cause fear among our people. No effort will be spared in finding and directing the appropriate resources to counter such threats and reassure our citizens of the full support of the state.
But he says above all this, ordinary people must join the fight.
To a great extent, their safety and their security depends on the level to which they are prepared to join in that fight.
The Prime Minister challenged these commissioners from the regions to become agents of change. He says it's important for them to implement the strategies that they discussed this week, as at the end of the day, it's important for CARICOM not to suffer from the fallout of crime. At the Imperial Ballroom at the Atlantis Resort on Paradise Island, Clint Watson, ZNS News.
Well, there's a busy agenda ahead for conference delegates, including areas that the Bahamas wants to focus on, along with the Jamaican constabulary head. We spoke with both of them today.
One of the issues that will be given primacy is the illicit trafficking of weapons, and certainly the concomitant problems that result. We will also be looking at topics around the investigation of cybercrime, and as we extend that particular topic, high-tech crime, not just the cyberspace bit of it, but high-tech crime. Given the technological advances that we now see, that is a very complex, complicated arena to work in. Trafficking in persons, as opposed to human smuggling, two separate and distinct issues. And sometimes they tend to bleed into each other, but different issues that we will be looking at.
This strategy requires commitment of resources, setting targets, measuring performance, ensuring that the targets are met. And if that is sustained, then you can defeat organized crime. Yeah.
In just under 2 days, the newly elected slate of MPs will take their seats in the House of Assembly, marking the start of a new electoral term. The opening of Parliament takes place on Wednesday. At that time, The second-time Prime Minister, the Right Honourable Perry Christie, will detail through Governor General His Excellency Sir Arthur Folkes his government's agenda. Our Janaea Noel Ferguson spoke with Chief Clerk of the House of Assembly, Maurice Tynes, about the timeless tradition which continues to be a highly anticipated public spectacle.
The Christie-led administration will officially switch sides when Parliament officially opens on Wednesday. A key part of the opening is the speech from the throne, which lays out the government's agenda for the session. During the campaign trail, many promises were made, including a referendum on gambling, a Marco Archer's law, and revisiting recently passed legislation. Parliamentarians have expressed their desire to get down to work. But before that can happen, Parliamentary Clerk Maurice Tynes takes note of the first steps.
The first thing the House does is actually elect a Speaker. And then the Speaker takes the oath, and then members of Parliament take their oath. So they can't do any other function other than elect the Speaker before they take the oath of allegiance. The Governor General, when he comes to the square, he inspects the Guard of Honor, and then he sends the black rod from the Senate to summons the members of Parliament. And so we retain a lot of the elements of past centuries.
But despite all the fanfare surrounding the opening of Parliament, Mr. Tynes said the government will have to present a budget before the last Wednesday in May.
And so the House has to make a determination whether or not it's going to use a couple of days prior to next week Wednesday to debate the speech from the throne prior to the budget communication being read. And that's where we are today.
Meanwhile, final preparations are taking place to the physical structure of the House of Assembly. Mr. Tynes also said that the upper chamber will change with less members in the opposition.
When the numbers in House change, we have to reconfigure the chamber. And we anticipate there's going to be a by-election in North Africa at some point, and we don't want to go and make major changes and then we have to change again. So we're going to just recommend that we leave the seating as is, and then so we'll have the 9 opposition members in front on the opposition side, and other government members sit behind them, and of course on the right side of the Speaker will be only government members.
Some new and familiar faces will officially take their seats in Parliament for the opening on May 23rd. Janaea Noel Ferguson, ZNS News.
Education Minister Jerome Fitzgerald says the education budget cut by the previous administration will be increased by a little more than what it was in 2007. Tonight, Carla Palmer also tells us about his plans to implement a more relevant curriculum in public schools.
The Honourable Jerome Fitzgerald may be new to the portfolio he now assumes as the Minister of Education, Science and Technology, but for him, the expressed commitment, determination and vision is there to make a meaningful change, like a turnaround in the national grade point average from a D.
The D average is an issue that we're going to look at very closely, particularly our secondary education, where you will see that there will be a great push to move to what we call applied academics, which includes a lot of the vocational studies that we have traditionally known. And we are looking to move those children who are more gifted in those areas and who show a greater degree of interest in those areas to start to separate them after grade 9.
His Charter for Governance is a blueprint of improved programs and policies he's looking to implement throughout the education system. While it's his intent to place more emphasis on core subjects like math and English and have more Bahamian history included in the curriculum, he knows that he must first decrease the dropout rate in the public school system, getting students not only back into the classrooms but focused and learning.
I just on Friday met with the financial people within my ministry to review the budget that was presented under the past administration to make sufficient changes to ensure that some of the programs and some of the commitments we made within our charter is reflected in the budget.
With a review of the budget now underway, Minister Fitzgerald could not say definitively how much his ministry will likely receive. Carla Palmer, ZNS News.
Outgoing Free National Movement leader, former Prime Minister the Right Honorable Hubert Ingraham, will give his farewell address when the party meets in convention on Saturday. Closed sessions will take place before elections for a new party leader and deputy leader. During the one-day special convention set for the Holy Trinity Activity Center, other party posts will also be up for election. The elections will take place during an open session, but the day sessions, which will include the nomination process and party constitutional amendment proposals, will be closed to the public. The convention theme is Ignite the Future, and according to the party, emphasizes the determination of every member and the more than 65,000 supporters of the FNM to do everything in their power to hold the torch of freedom high, to light the way to a better future, thereby igniting the hearts of Bahamians, a recommitment to good governance, accountability, and integrity in public office.